welcome to Gov Geeks Assemble. Level up your 9 to 5 on 95. I'm Javier, and I'm super excited to welcome a special featured guest presenter for us today. I had the chance to hear him at a great presentation not too long ago from the Performance Institute at the Government Performance Summit here in 2022. If you're listening to this in the future and just going back in time, listening to the good content, let me go ahead and read his bio because Mark is just amazing. Okay, Mark Leech serves as the Deputy Director for the Department of Technology and Innovation in the City of Albuquerque, and that's Albuquerque, New Mexico. Yes, to New Mexico. This is fantastic. The 505 being represented here. I'm from New Mexico as well, so I have to do a little shout out. A well-established technical expert and public servant, Mark has managed the Albuquerque Police Department Technical Services Units and led the city's efforts in open data, transparency, and innovation. Did such a great job with this, in fact, that in 2015, Mark earned the prestigious William Dixon First Amendment Award by the New Mexico Foundation for Open Government for his work on open data work. He also moved to New Mexico from England in 2002 and holds an MSc in Information Systems Engineering from the University of Wolverhampton, England. Mark, welcome to the show.
Hi, Javier.
Yeah, you know, my throat is a little bit sore after reading all of those long accomplishments and cool things that you got going on.
Yeah, most of it happened a while back, but certainly it's just so good being in government because it's kind of like you get to do so many things.
Yeah, that is such amazing stuff. So you and I had the chance to have our first introduction as part of the Performance Institute's GPS, which I mentioned a little while ago. How did your presentations and all that go for you?
It was super exciting. The presentation that you're talking about, we'd met the panel kind of, I want to say about the day before, and it turned out that we were all, there's so much synergy going on, and we were all talking from a common point of view. It was really, really good spending some time with these people. I also did a panel that was focused more on data and open government, and that was great as well. We had some really great questions, and quite a few people attended. It was really good.
It was really good. Yeah, it was so cool to see how much engagement there was on these different topics. I mean, not only were folks really excited about hearing the messages and everything, but on top of that, it was just so cool to have a community of government practitioners getting together to talk about what their experiences are. And there were folks from federal, state, local, all over the place that were represented.
And those some good questions. I mean, like you say, just touching back on the representation, it was the whole spectrum. Municipality is different to federal, but it's still government, and federal is different to municipality. But you had that whole continuum there, and that was super exciting.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the common thread is that everyone was just so excited about public service.
Totally.
So speaking of public service, I read a little bit about your bio here, but can you tell us a little bit more about your career field?
Sure. By trade, I'm a software developer, and in 2002, I was lucky enough to have an opportunity to come out to America and settled here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I did absolutely zero research, so I thought I was going to be giving up all the kind of English cuisine, all that kind of thing. And then lo and behold, over here, it's just been such a good move. It's been wonderful. I'm lucky enough to work with the city of Albuquerque, and that's just been a great environment to work in. It's super tough, but you go home every day feeling that you did something, you moved the needle and help people in the community.
Absolutely. I mean, the chance to do hard work at work worth doing is one of the most wonderful things. And I'm paraphrasing, I think that's Teddy Roosevelt. But just the idea of making a difference. And it sounds like this concept of moving the needle, it's not like you guys get together, you flip a switch and everything is done, but you're actually participating in making the world a better place.
That's very true, especially some of the work that we're doing, especially with things like smart communities and smart cities. If you think about it, a lot of these problems that we're trying to take on are difficult. They're entrenched problems. You know, some people call them wicked problems because they're not easy to unpack and undo. And being privileged enough to be asked to help and contribute expertise and time and thinking power to at least moving the needle a little bit. We're never going to sort everything out in one go. That's an unrealistic expectation, but we can make an incremental step, and being part of that's just such a cool thing.
Oh, yes. Many hands make light work.
Absolutely. Standing on the shoulders of giants. That's the other one way of looking at it.
That's essentially what it is. It's amazing. I mean, public funds are a public trust, and we are in these different positions to serve the community. And to hear like your enthusiasm about the work that you're doing to actually make a difference, it's so encouraging, especially when you compare that to, different perspectives that people have about government and not necessarily the holding them in as high as regard as perhaps they should be.
And I think that's really unfortunate because it's kind of like, as you say, government's got this really stale perspective. And in my last discussion, I was talking about kind of like, yeah, government actually gets a chance to be an innovator when we think about smart cities and smart communities, and that's not a stereotype that people have of government. And so being kind of like part of that change movement, and saying no, government's real. It's actually useful. It's not something that kind of like it is against you. It's actually something that works for you. That's a really powerful life goal, really.
And so that one, just to make sure, that one, the one that you're talking about, is the whole one on shaping government, right?
That's right. Yes.
In the future of government with
Yeah.
data.
Yeah.
Ah, so cool. Well, I mean, not only did I enjoy that session overall and the different topics that you guys were bringing up, I think that it was helpful to give people a lens with which to understand how government can actually be shaped. It's not like this very solid structure that is immovable, inchangeable. It's actually something that can be changed by well-intended public servants.
And I think you bring up a great point. We've just been going through this process ourselves internally. We used to see, if you'd have seen our department, I want to say about 10 years ago, we would have been a traditional inwardly focused services department that provided services for internal departments, right? And then the internal departments helped the community. It's a very, very traditional way of thinking about things. But we had this kind of like revelation, I want to say about 2 or 3 years ago, and we saw all this need in the community. Part of it was because of the pandemic, but it was also starting before then. That technology can serve the community directly. So when we do things like putting Wi-Fi into the community, when we do things about thinking more intently and taking some leadership around broadband, that's the department flipping its lens and saying, look, we've actually got an outward focus. So we're not this kind of like inward, almost like geekdom in the negative sense of the word. We've actually got a place in the community. And we've started to kind of carve our own path with that one. It's been a really interesting transition. But changing from internal focus to external focus, yeah, it really does. It brings the community together.
It's amazing because I hear, as you're describing this, that you are on the cutting edge of transforming government services in a way that hadn't been done before to serve an underserved community or population, so that now with these resources, they have more access to a better life. I mean, quite literally, sir, Mark, you changed people's lives.
That is exactly it. And what was really interesting, I mean, it sounds, again, this is a really interesting thing. You've got this huge vision of you changed somebody's life, but well, we did what we thought was the right thing. So half the time you're not aware that you're on the cutting edge, or you're not aware that you're doing stuff. This is almost like your survival mechanism. It's just a logical set of steps that you need to take. So it's really good, nice to hear it phrased like that. But also some of the stories we heard from the pandemic, when we put Wi-Fi out into the community, when we flipped some of the Wi-Fi in the city buildings, although they were closed, we flipped it out so that people could access it. We were hearing it was making a very, very real difference to people who were homeless, who couldn't access government services any other way because everything was shut down. Having access to some kind of Wi-Fi, we're hearing it time and again, it really made a change to people's lives. So something even small and apparently insignificant can have an outsized impact.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So obviously the Gov Geeks, we like to represent a little bit of the geek sides of things. And we have stuff like, of course, the shield, the hammer and everything. But I think one of the concepts with that is that really the work that public servants do is heroic. I mean, and to genuinely have a person say thank you for your service, it's meaningful because you really save people's lives in so many ways.
Absolutely, yeah, it is, and it's kind of like sometimes you have those kind of almost like a mountaintop experience where you see that, and it's like you go back and you say, this stoplight is now a smart stoplight because of work that my teams did, and then you go, that's really cool. And that's what keeps you going, is those mountaintop experiences. But also then next day you're back into the fight, and it's like, well, okay, am I doing the right thing? And a lot of the time you don't know. You're setting this. You're setting in motion actions and events that are going to take a while to shake out, and you don't know if you're going to win or lose in this one. So you get the highs and lows there.
Well, I think maybe that's a little bit of what public service is, and really in life in general, the highs and the lows. But what's so empowering and encouraging and exciting about what you're talking about, Mark, is the idea that an individual has the chance to actually say, well, what is the important work that needs to be done? So you're not thinking about, oh, I'm doing all these bigger things that are going to have these impacts. It's what is the right thing to do in this moment.
And that's really what we actually, that's really cool that you touched on that, because that's something that we're really encouraging our teams and empowering our teams to do that. And the way that I like to think about it is, in a traditional game of, I say American football, but in a traditional game of football, right, kind of like more or less when the ball hits the ground, the play stops, everybody looks at the bench, the coach then looks down at his plan, says, right, we're going to do that play. In a game of soccer, obviously that's a game that I'm more familiar with, and I've kind of like coached you with youth teams. If the ball hits the ground and everybody looks at you, that's a mistake, right? Because then the other team can go get the ball. My job as a coach is to make sure that my teams are empowered and they can make those decisions. They're the ones making the decisions. I might tidy it up at halftime and say, well, that's this, you should be doing this, or you're going this direction. But really the question is, can the team think for themselves and make those kind of like ethical judgments, make those good decisions? And with the guidance that I've given them.
That's super cool. Empowerment. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
You're there, you're supportive, but at the end of the day, the decision is in their hands and they have the opportunity to quite literally run with it.
Absolutely. And you know what? It's better for me because I have less, I say less work. It's less administrative work, but on the other hand, they guess what, your teams are good, you recruited the best people you could at the time. It's like, let them run with it, and it's like they'll always surprise you, and it's amazing what your teams can do.
Yeah, and I think when government functions in that way, it's an exciting place to be, an exciting place to work. Well, why wouldn't you want to work in an environment like that?
Yeah, the way that I've been talking to teams recently is also, it's like every morning you get to play with the biggest Lego set in the whole wide world, and that's a community. It's like, yes. That is just so cool.
Yeah, that's so cool. It's like Mark's out there playing a game of The Sims.
Oh, totally. Yeah. So I'm so totally there. We'll just tweak this over here and do that over there. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. These public services over here and people are happy. Yep. Well, I'm curious. So we're talking a little bit about, empowerment and other things. Well, what in your mind or perspective can an individual public servant do to have a career that is full of, fulfillment?
That's a great question, and sometimes I think in government you get just so beaten down. It's difficult to it's almost like you get it beaten out of you, if you will. So the first thing I'd say is, you are always the master of your own destiny. It's always up to you ultimately, and I think it's always start with the small things. How do you keep your corner of the world clean? How do you make it better for somebody else? It's not about you. It's not about the conflicts you're involved with. Try and maintain that kind of like bigger perspective of kind of like, there is something bigger going on here. There are fun things. You took this job on for a reason. And it wasn't just the pay. There was something that enticed you to do it. Really kind of like tap onto that. And then just like I say, just start with the small things. Okay, can I keep my desk clean? Can I make sure that my contracts, the contracts that, for example, that I pass on to somebody else, I've done my best with that particular contract? If I have, then I can walk home that night and say, yes, I made it better for somebody else.
Absolutely. Milestones of sincere and direct movement, positive movement. Well, it sounds like, from your storied career, you've been in these roles for 20 plus years. You've done a lot. You're well educated and experienced. Where along the way was there an individual or an experience that has really motivated you or allowed you to kind of really take on this perspective?
So it was actually, I also mentioned my boss, who I'm really privileged to work with, Brian Oslo, who's the department director. He's an absolute icon in a lot of people's eyes. We were sitting down in the restaurant in the basement of City Hall one morning. We had an absolutely awful experience. I don't want to go into too much into what that experience was. And we were sitting there. He had his resignation letter was just about to hit print on his laptop. I was just literally going upstairs to go and write mine. And then we kind of like looked at each other across the table, and there's this almost like, it's kind of like movie moments. We just looked at each other and said, "There's got to be a better way. There's got to be we should not be feeling this beaten down. We should not be feeling this discouraged about what's going on around us." We tried and tried and tried, and then really what we started once we got to that, "There's got to be a better way" moment. We kind of like paused, looked at each other, and I went, "Well, maybe we are wrong here. Maybe we shouldn't be the department that controls. Maybe we should be facilitators instead of gatekeepers, changing our vocabulary. What happens if we listen to somebody and imagine they're right? Even if I'm convinced, but walk a mile in their shoes." And then all of a sudden, it's kind of like then you have this almost like revelation, and the wall comes crashing down. It's like, oh, wait a minute, hang on, there's a way out of this. And that was really the start of the career path we've been pushing.
That's beautiful. I mean, right on the cusp of something like that, and you took a positive role forward, and your life changed.
Yeah.
Another person could have said, "You know what? I'm not even going to talk about it anymore." You click the button, there goes the resignation.
We're done. Yeah. And the thing is, if we'd have clicked the button, we'd have both walked away with dignity at that situation. So it wasn't that kind of like, we were per se going to lose, but I can say we were better off for not having pressed that button.
Yeah, you guys individually, but also all of the good that you've been able to do since then. I mean, so many people are the benefactors of your decision to stay.
I hope so.
Well, I mean, it looks like it by all of the awards and recognition and panels and speeches and everything that you're given. You must be doing something right, Mark.
I hope so. And I think the other thing that we've been doing is we've not been really aggressively pushing and then trying to get onto panels. We've not been really pushing for awards, that kind of thing. The awards have just come out of the work we've been doing, that the people have said, "Hey, you really ought to apply for this," or really, "Hey, would you mind, speaking on this panel?" So really, we aren't kind of like the extrovert kind of like, government leaders that you see sometimes. We're just quietly here, just minding our own business and trying to get work done.
I think that happens so often in public service, where people are working behind the scenes and just getting stuff done. People don't recognize all of the great things that are happening because there's, to a certain degree, like an expectation. Well, the traffic lights should work, or this activity should work. But all of the effort that really went into all of that to make those things happen, I mean, they're just phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
This is, I don't know about you, and hopefully everyone else that's listening, that's watching, you're feeling as excited and motivated as I am to like hear what Mark is doing and bettering the community. I mean, I feel like I want to go over there to Albuquerque and put in my application.
Hey, you're more than welcome. We'd love to see you over there.
Oh, it'd be so great. Oh, the sunsets, so gorgeous, so gorgeous.
Balloon Fiesta coming up as well in October. Yeah.
The Balloon Fest is just so gorgeous. Guys, if you haven't had a chance to go out there and see that, it's just an amazing, amazing experience. So I'd highly recommend it. Mark, I'm curious, do you have any websites, resources, materials, or anything like that you'd like to share with the GovDetail?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. We've been doing a lot of work and thinking about smart communities. And so we've taken a little bit of a bold step. And people keep on asking us, "What are you doing in smart communities?" And it can be kind of like people like yourself, or it could be like vendors who want to sell us things, or people who want to collaborate with us, or future employees, or all these different kind of audiences. So we spent a long time in thinking about, what would it mean to actually be able to put something together that would speak to many of these groups. And so what we've actually gone and done is we've put together a Smart Cities Prospectus, which outlines what the city's doing. It's also got right next to it a neat flyover of one of our test labs that we use for our smart communities collaboration.
So, Mark, I'm so excited to have this conversation. And I know, looking at the time, I want to make sure that we're respectful of your time. I'm curious, if you were going to have a conversation with someone who is really interested in working in government, what are some strategies or suggestions that you would have for them to consider?
Great. And we do, and then strangely, you asked this kind of like in a more formal setting. I certainly spend a lot of time meeting with people who, who we're either kind of like got our eye on, cherry picking, if you will, or that have said, hey, I'm interested in working with in government. And so we often do a kind of like coffee, just talk it through, this kind of time, and gives us a chance to sound out whether or not you're going to be a good fit in our organization. What I would say is, really kind of like play to your strengths, both technically, because especially for a department like ours, we are really pushing on what can you do. So we're expecting you to hit the ground running. There's a lot to be done. So we're expecting people who are capable. So we want to see how have you grown as a person, but also what technical skills have you got, what capabilities do you have, so that I can then say, okay, right, I need to help you in this area, or we need to provide some training over here, that kind of thing. So when you make that application, really think about, stressing, okay, I've done this many things, sorry, I've got this technical capability here. I've done this project over here. It saved us this amount of money, and kind of like really put those concrete numbers in that I can see when I'm reading your resume that yes, this project that you did saved your organization $10,000, or gave you an opportunity to go and do something else.
That's awesome. Yeah, demonstrating the impact. It's not so much as you're saying, well, I did this activity for 8 hours a day for 30 years. All right, well,
so what?
Yeah.
Exactly that. And it's amazing. We do some outreach work with local community colleges as well, and the number of times that we say, don't forget, put hard numbers in. If you were in a club, how long were you there for? What did you do? What you're a club president. What were your outcomes during that tenure as the club president? How did you move the needle?
It's so amazing because at the GovGeeks, when we're working with folks on such similar topics, it's not just entry level or like,
right.
First time resume writer, executives,
Yep.
What does this mean? What did you do?
What did you do with your life? Yeah, absolutely. But I think that also comes back down to the reason I'm interested in that as much as anything. Number one, I want to see what you did. But number two, when you're in that role, you have to write an argument. You have to write a persuasive argument a lot of times. Yeah, it's a part of a justification. It's part of a contract, whatever it is. So being able to articulate yourself in terms of outcomes is to everybody's benefit, because then I can see, okay, what are you trying to do here? How much do you think you're going to, move the needle here? Is it worth me investing in your project?
Exactly. All of this stuff is good. Well, Mark, thank you so much for taking the opportunity to chat with us and sharing all of your wisdom with the GovGeekdom. I mean, again, sincerely, thank you for your service. It's just truly amazing the work that you're able to do.
And thank you. This has been really fun. I've really enjoyed it.
Outstanding. Everyone, thank you so much for watching and for listening as well. We really appreciate your engagement. I'll go ahead and include more information for Mark down below in the show notes, all of his great URLs and information as well. But from all of us here at the GovGeeks, sincerely, thank you for your service. We look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you.